looks way better than usual. All right, let us know. Turn that off when you guys can hear us, or at least me, because Dan isn't talking right now yet.
Hello.
And then let's put this here for now. We'll go through the reader mail first. Can you guys hear us? I'm not seeing anyone typing. Okay. There it is. Jeez. Okay, so I'm Tom, and that's...
Hi, I'm Dan.
He is here. He flew in from the Northeast a few days ago. I guess, as usual, we'll be more business-like and go through our Patreon and reader mail submissions first, and then we will go through, we'll get out quite a big bottle of beer and let you guys ask us questions in the live chat. Now, save the live chat questions for, about 15 minutes from now, because we're going to go through the Patreon supporters first. So let's see. All right. First comes from our Net Burst supporter, Lisa Sue Threadripper, which I believe is, that's a pretty good name. And she, probably a man, asks, I had some trouble with my computer, which led me to the inevitable solution, reinstalling Windows. In the past, to do this, I would format the OS drive, find my original install disk or USB. Yeah, that used to be a nightmare on Windows 7.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, but he goes, recently I noticed that Windows has some new features like reset that deletes every program, including the registry, and then installs the latest version of Windows. Requires no media, no activation, and hugely improves performance on older machines. So I'm just going to skip ahead here. Let's see. Yeah, but I think basically this is talking about just, isn't this getting significantly better? And I mean, I don't know what to add here, except that, yeah, it's great. I've used it on my laptops. For a do-it-yourself desktop, this isn't as world, moving, like mountain moving and improvements as it is if you have a HP laptop, because reinstalling Windows on those and getting the proper drivers can be impossible. So being able to reset pre-built is what I think the biggest thing about that is. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I used to have to reinstall Windows 7 every few years. I don't know what, or every year and a half.
I would do it a lot just because I was upgrading parts so often in the past that I was kind of just had to restart.
Well, yeah, because we started with HDDs, and moving to SSDs and then faster and faster ones made us reinstall Windows over and over for a while. But the thing is, I've never had to reinstall Windows 10 on almost any of my devices in the past few years. Like, it's just substantially more stable.
Yeah, I think I have had to once. I don't remember why though. But
okay. Well,
I don't know.
I've been lucky. I haven't had to do shit for years. So, all right, let's move on to the, I like this guy here who says, why can't we fast forward? Well, unless you have a time machine, there's really no way to fast forward during a live stream. Welcome to YouTube. An Unlocked supporter, Ikes, asks, what kind of interconnect will be used in the redesign of the CCX and Zen 3? Will they scale it up directly? Well, so, I mean, Zen 3 is removing... they're moving to just one big CCX of 8 cores, I believe. But we won't really know exactly how it works for another, probably 6 months.
Yeah, so, whenever we start hearing whispers, stronger whispers of whatever Zen 3 will be.
And unless you're talking about the Infinity Fabric that connects chiplets, I don't have no indication that's being tweaked. It's the chip. This is Zen 3. It's not a complete redesign in how the architecture works. It's just a new architecture in the chiplets.
Yeah,
is my understanding. We still don't know enough to really answer that question, but we will when we can. And Ike's also asked, what do you think about Intel changing their NDA so they can't be compared with Threadripper 3000? Honestly, I think it was just stupid.
Yeah, I think it backfired way more than they expected it to, because I mean, we watched some YouTube videos today. Pretty much everyone was criticizing this decision heavily.
Yeah, I gotta say that if it was something Intel decided to do, I don't know, a month ago, like they said, or if they just moved it up one day before Threadripper a month ago, it would look shitty, but it would look decisive. The fact that they did this literally at the last minute, it made them look even dumber than if they would have just let it be compared to Threadripper, which it still was. And on a lot of channels, I saw a lot of channels. I think, was it Tweaktown? I saw several channels say they're just not even going to upload the video yet. They'll just wait a day and said, whatever, Intel, the embargo's early, but we're not going early. In fact, now we're going to delay it because to not compare it to Threadripper would be like almost lying by omission to your fans.
Well,
I think.
And yeah, so that just incentivizes the sites that need to put out those reviews to take benchmark, to not do the Threadripper 3K benchmarks, but
yeah.
If you're willing to delay a few hours or a couple days and put in work over the weekend, you can get a review out.
Yeah, but Linus Tech Tips definitely didn't pull any punches in his review of Cascade Latex.
No,
I mean, and we'll probably talk about it more in the live chat mail. But yeah, honestly, I don't know why Intel did that. That was probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Moving on, Yoda King asks, this may not be directly tech related, but I was wondering what your social media habits were. Do you have site preferences? Do you limit the amount of time on social media? Oh, this is a good question since you're here. I'll let you go first.
I guess for me, I mostly just use Facebook for Messenger, and then I use Reddit. I don't really use that much else at this point because I'm tired of working on it. I'm tired of like looking at all this crap all the time. So I have them on my phone, but I don't really post that often. I mainly use social media using my name just for messaging.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I don't think I've ever had a problem not using social media. Like, honestly, I didn't really, I mean, I had a Twitter to ask for like game codes every now and then when a company would have a beta. They were like, you'd have to request it over Twitter for viral marketing. And that's all I had. I made one for Moore's Law is Dead like 6 months after I had a Moore's Law is Dead, just because I realized that there really are different bubbles within Twitter, and the tech bubble really is more of an open conversation. So I didn't mind making a Twitter for that. But I mean, in terms of what I use, I don't really use social media, and I didn't have to stop myself.
Yeah,
I've never really been I think like most men, I made a Facebook because a girl told me I should. And so I was like, okay. And I wonder how many people here in the live chat who are men made a Facebook because a girl told them to friend her. But I mean, to be honest, I use Facebook Messenger because it's great to keep up with high school friends. And otherwise, I think I have 100 friends on Facebook, and I keep purging like 10% of them every year. I have no need to use it.
I have a pretty bloated Facebook friend group just because there's this thing in like high school and college where if you meet a person once, they send you a friend request and then you don't turn it down in case you meet them again and it's awkward. That's about the only reason
I just don't respond.
That's probably a good
I hate
choice.
it when family members send me Facebook requests because I decidedly don't want most of my family members to be friends on Facebook. Although I don't know if it matters anymore because I don't use it. So like, what would they see me post?
Yeah, I don't really post status updates on Facebook or anything like that.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just not hard for me to not use social media. I don't know. So I don't limit myself. I just don't like using it. Now moving on to standard / below premium members, but I like to throw them in here if I get a chance. So Flame Pie Man, which I think you should change your name to Flaming Pie Man, asks, with the idea of getting a 2700X now and waiting to get a 3000 series chip, how much do you think selling the 2700X will be worth, and how much 3000 will come down? So I'm going to skip ahead. I like this question. He's basically asking the absolute change in value. If you get a 2700X now, which Dan,
I just got a 2700X. Hey.
Yeah, for 130 at Micro Center. Like if you get a 2700X now, it will go down in value, but will it go down in value more than Ryzen 3000 will over a year? And I would say in percentage terms, it might go down more, but in absolute value, I mean, look, I could see the 3900X being $200 cheaper in a year.
I mean, probably
less
prices drop pretty precipitously
with
after
AMD
a while.
processors.
Yeah.
And the 2700X, I can't see that going below $70. At least if it did, I'd be blown away. So, I mean, what you have to ask yourself is, do you need more than 8 cores now at 4.4 gigahertz? I know it's 10% less IPC, or well, really 15% less. But I mean, I think it's a good option. That's what Dan's done. He's gotten a 2700X. A lot of X570 motherboards are now just as cheap as just good X470 with somewhat better IO.
Yeah,
so just get an X570, put a dirt cheap 2700X in there, install an NVMe drive, and then when you want to upgrade, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the decision I made, because I could get a pretty good CPU for gaming for $130, so I might as well do it.
But yeah, I think that's something people should consider. And by the way, that again, so again, to answer the question, the 2700X will probably be $50 cheaper in a year. The 3900X will be more than $100 cheaper in a year. Like the Zen 3 will come out and just bump down prices again. But yeah, and I might do that too. Although I don't know. I don't know how much I care about upgrading right away. We'll see. I keep being all over the place in my opinion of what I'm going to do. But Bearwall writes in as well and asks, unfortunately, I think the days of low prices for AMD products are in the past. I'm sure there are going to be sales on holiday prices, but I think 4000 series is going to be the climb of prices. And to be honest, I don't know if I agree with that.
I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see if they get cocky after having a year of market dominance. But I don't think anything we've seen so far has suggested that they're really anti-competitive with their pricing at this point. Like, let's look at the launch of new CPUs today. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think I'm getting more and more annoyed at people talking about AMD prices, to be honest. I mean, when I was at Micro Center, the 3800X was $300 if you buy it with a motherboard. I mean, that's like an equivalent of a 9900K that costs $180 more. So we can complain about AMD prices as much as we want, but they're giving you a 9900K that uses less energy, that doesn't have security problems for a third of the price lower. Like, AMD is giving substantially better price performance. I mean, everyone complains about the 5700 XT. If you adjust for inflation, it's the same price as the 7870. Like, how is this bad? And it's sure shit. It's about half the price as the 2080 Super, and it's like 15% weaker. So again, it's like, I'm kind of just over this whole pricing discussion. I believe AMD is going to continue to price things to be competitive with Intel. Now, Intel may completely fall off a cliff next year, though. Like, I'm concerned. I'm kind of eating popcorn and waiting for it to happen, but I don't know. I don't think AMD is going to go crazy with prices until Zen 5, to be honest. I think, because I know Intel Comet Lake will be good enough that AMD can't go crazy. Yeah. And I think I'm getting some rumblings that Intel's looking to pull ahead some Halo 10 nanometer desktop products. Like, they might do a mixed Rocket Lake, Comet Lake launch like they're doing with Ice Lake and Comet Lake on laptop now. And that'll be just enough to keep AMD trying to innovate as fast as they can. And I really think AMD is going to just twist the knife with Zen 3. I've said it since the start of my channel. Zen 2 is when AMD completely wins, and Zen 3 is when they just twist the knife. And I'm not changing my opinion yet. I do not think AMD is going to price gouge. And I don't see any of their launches lately as price gouging.
Well, you can't say they're price gouging.
They're not.
They're the best. That's still the best price for whatever tier.
It's laughable to consider Intel's HEDT now. Laughable. Yes, yeah. Like, I would call you an idiot. Like, you're an idiot. Like, there were times where I could justify other things before. And then people have asked me, when would I get the 10980XE? I'd be like, $400. That's what it would cost. $400. $400. That's when. No PCIe 4.0. It has more lanes, but I'm not going to use them. And the security vulnerabilities keep rolling in. Linus Tech Tips touched on that, which I thought was interesting, which they have some hardware mitigations to some of their security problems in the 10980XE. And so it's losing in benchmarks to the previous gen Skylake X.
Which, yeah.
Like, who knows what's next? Like, they're not going to stop coming. I've had people... look, guys, more security problems are coming too. It's just... So what would it take for me to get an 18-core Intel? Well, It would take $400 because it's about
Yeah.
the same performance as the 3950X, and it uses double the energy. I don't know what, it has an uncertain future. If you get a 3950X right now or 3900X, we know you'll upgrade to Zen 3, which looks to be 20% higher performance at least and lower power usage.
Yeah,
guessing,
so
but
so Intel's probably going to have to drop their prices pretty fast.
Exactly.
So
and I think this is the comparison I want to make too. I wrote this down. So people who say AMD's price gouging, Dan, you had an 8320.
Yeah.
You had an FX 8320. How much did you pay for it?
150 or 160, I think.
So you paid 150 or 160 for this insane power hungry, but price performance
was fine.
Yeah. And I actually think the what was it, the 990 FX chipset was actually like really good.
Yeah, it was.
Like the chipsets for the pile driver chips were great. So Dan paid 150 for a pile driver 8-core like 5 years ago. Now an 8-core 16 thread, which I guess the court ruled too. Your 8-core was a quad core. Apparently.
It was a quad core in California.
It was an 8-thread CPU. Now you can get a 16-thread AMD for $130, cheaper than what you had, and it uses less energy. So I'm not seeing the price gouging, guys. But prices just keep getting better. All right, C-Sesh writes in, this is actually a peasant. I'm actually letting one of these hitchhikers talk.
Throw some scraps out.
Throw some scraps, sir. C-Sesh asks, hey, Tom, since your C9 OLED got G-Sync certificate, mind giving that another test? Not right now, but that's actually not a bad idea.
Testing G-Sync on it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can.
Like, this channel keeps getting bigger because you guys support us. So eventually next year, I do want to get a test rig, a dedicated test rig if I have the time. And I will start stocking select NVIDIA cards for benchmarking. I think a 1070 has to be there. I actually want to get a GTX 580. Just because, it supports DirectX 12, so might as well. I want like a 5.8. I want like one card from NVIDIA from each gen. I think I'll get for Maxwell a 970 because that's such a legendary seller. So like a 970, a 1070, or 1080, depending on what I can get. A GTX 580. Should we get a GTX 680 just to laugh at it? I honestly might not even benchmark Kepler. No one should buy it. And then
2080 probably, or 2070 if you can get one, if that's possible for you to ever benchmark.
Oh, eventually I'll get a Turing card. Yeah. And then I already have a 380. A Vega 56 will always be benchmarked, and an RX 560. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking of doing. And when I do that, I'll probably do some more lag testing. The camera we're using now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, this looks a lot better than what I had 6 months ago. But this can record at 960 hertz, so I'll be able to test like latency and stuff too.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. But yeah, thank you, C-Sesh. And so I don't know. I guess we're about to do reader mail, but I guess let's just talk openly a little bit longer. Matt Harley writes in and says, Threadripper 3000 versus Cascade Lake X. How is that even a versus? It's not. Again, so that video I had, which I noticed Adored's video was named almost the same as my Threadripper opinion video. He said AMD's victory lap.
Okay.
My video about Threadripper was called AMD's victory lap around themselves. Because this is something I don't like when people complain about pricing. I think we really got to put this in perspective. Intel's not in second place. Threadripper 3000 is in first place. And by the way, you guys got to watch Hardware Unboxed review. His review of Threadripper shows that it games just as well as the 3950X roughly, which is insane to me. There are some games where it did better.
Yeah, and one or two examples where it did worse, I think.
Which I would expect.
Yeah.
So the Threadripper 3000 is everything. And of course, if you do multi-threaded stuff, it's a complete joke, right? Like Carbon Cry says here, it's competing with Xeon W and obliterating it. And for $1,000 less, again, price gouging is not price gouging. It's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
But Threadripper 3000's up here. And then below Threadripper 3000 is actually previous gen Threadripper. And then below that is the Ryzen 3950X and Zen 2. And then down here in fourth place is Intel's HEDT. So Intel's in fourth place and AMD's in first, second, and third, which actually we just saw a Ford v Ferrari
Good movie.
Much like Ford's GT and first, second, and third place on the Le Mans race.
Yeah.
So, so AMD's in first, second, and third right now, and yet they're still offering better price performance than Intel. So I just don't think we have room to complain right now. Let me see. Someone mentioned audio, so I guess I'll just put this a little closer. I assume we sound fine, though. We tested it. But yeah, so I don't know what else. Do you have anything else to add about Threadripper, Cascade Lake X?
No, just that, yeah, Intel got destroyed with this.
I mean, this is just, and to think that Zen 3 might be out by, I think it's late 2020, guys, but I've always said it could be mid 2020 or something. And if that happens, and again, guys, it's called Zen 3. It is not called Zen 2 Plus. It is a complete redesign, a complete architecture. And I have rumblings that there will be higher core counts than we've been initially led to believe. Although, again, I'm not confirming that, but we'll see on server. AMD is not being coy. They are saying expect big IPC gains and some speed gains. I mean, this is very bad. We might get into a situation where it's like Threadripper 3000, Zen 3 desktop, Zen Plus Threadripper, Zen 2 desktop, and then down here, I don't know, AMD's laptop chips, and then down here, Intel. Like, this is getting pretty bad. I heard Zen 3 might only be 8%. Well, there's also a leak that it might be 15. So if you're not impressed, then go to Intel. They're getting negative IPC gains every year with their security problems. So if you're not impressed by AMD, well, then there's no one to be impressed by, because AMD is competing with themselves at this point. All right, let's see. The last thing I'll talk about briefly is 3950X availability. So I was at 2 micro centers. As the one in Minneapolis and the one in Chicago in the past few days. The one in Minneapolis, they said they'd have a few. The one in Chicago, they were like, we're going to get a bunch, but you better get here in the morning because it's going to sell out. And it did. I know it did. I checked. I almost got one from the AMD Direct store, but not quite. And I'll be looking. If I get a 3950X, I'll get it. But as far as I can tell, there's no way to tell how available it was, except that it definitely did go on sale on Amazon, Newegg, AMD Direct, and Micro Center. Multiple Micro Centers that I checked. Someone told me that it's at Fry's as well, that they had a handful there.
Oh, I forgot about Fry's.
Yeah, so at least in the US, the 3950X is getting widespread availability. Now, there's been a lot of people saying that 3950X is a paper launch. I think you need to shut up about that, because it's clearly not. If they had them at multiple micro centers, if they had them at multiple locations, it wasn't a paper launch. In the United States, though, I'm not saying it's widely available in Europe or other continents. And
they could be prioritizing a US launch, which seems to happen a lot.
Which I think people need to think about that, right? I mean, let me put that there. Like, why would they? It makes sense to prioritize the US. Like, look at the sales we have about the 3950X selling in, Zen 2 selling in Europe. It's selling like gangbusters. Like, I believe AMD is selling well versus Intel in the US, but all data suggests that they're like outselling Intel by hilarious margins in Europe. So why would AMD even bring the 3950X there first? 90% of their stock should go to the US to keep taking market share, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it seemed like they were just destroying in Europe.
Yeah, so it makes sense to prioritize the US. And in fact, that's what happened. This reminds me of like the PlayStation 4 launch, which was the first console from Sony to launch in the US first. And it's because they realized, what are we doing? Like, we're going to win Japan. Europe's in the bag as well. We got to get stock to America right away, because that's where the battle's fought. And that's where the battle's still fought for AMD and market share right now. So I don't know how available it will be. If I can get one, I will. Otherwise, I'm willing to wait. I mean, look, this PC I'm using right now works fine. You had to upgrade sooner, but actually, you don't have a ton of money though, so you were never going to get any of these expensive things. Yeah,
and my computer was falling apart because it was using some very old components.
Yeah,
some of it was over 5 years old.
Yeah, you had a Broadwell i7, which we're going to keep that.
Yeah.
Because that's a cool unicorn chip. Unless you can sell it for a lot, you might be able to.
I would want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the processor before selling it. I don't think that's
you've
the
had some
issue with
stability
it, but
issues.
yeah.
But yeah, so Dan had to upgrade, and the 2700X is going to be good. Yeah, Dan, this guy says Dan looks metal. Do you feel very heavy metal right now? Why don't you show people what your shirt says?
I'm wearing my Round Earth Shill shirt.
Dan is a Round Earth shill.
I'm a Round Earther.
Yeah, actually, so I believe the Flat Earther die shrink comes out this Friday, by the way, guys.
So this is a good preview.
This is a good ad for die shrink. All right. So I talked about availability. Let's see. Let me write down some notes here.
I know I'm a shill, Adrian.
I think it's about time we get to about an hour or so of live chat Q&A. Should we?
Sure. Let's do it.
Should we drink some beer?
Yeah, let's drink some beer.
Can you go get a couple of cool glasses and the regular? It's actually not the regular. The regular is like Mississippi Blonde. We will be having a very special beer for Thanksgiving. All right. So now is the time to prepare your live chat questions. If you tip us, and by the way, I want to be clear about this. The reason I of course, if you tip us, you're funding the channel. But if you tip us, I see your question. It doesn't need to be a big tip. I'll accept a big tip. But if you put a $1 tip, that allows us to notice your question. So, all right. Let me put this down here. Well, let me move this over. But that's the point of the tipping for most people, is I will actually be able to answer your question. If you want us to answer it for no tip, support us on Patreon.
Should I open it?
Yeah, I don't want to shake that.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. We are having North Coast Old Stock Ale, so we're probably going to get pretty fucked up, if I had to guess.
We'll see. It looks pretty fancy.
Zachary Martin, who seems to have a picture of Bill Clinton freaking out, asks, how has your Monday been? Dan, how has our Monday been?
Sorry. Our Monday has been pretty good. We went to see Ford v Ferrari, so that was fun.
Yeah. We watched a bunch of reviews in the morning. I actually worked a half day today, but I'm off for the rest of the week. So you know what? Cheers.
Cheers to Thanksgiving.
Cheers to Thanksgiving, everybody. To family. It's like Need for Speed, or it's about, no, Fast and the Furious. It's
all about family.
It's all about family. I like this question from Carbon Cry. God, this is really good.
What do you see as
What do you see as the market for the 64-core Threadripper? Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Carbon Cry. Seriously. So the market for 64-core Threadripper is anyone who wants 64 cores. But no, it's rendering, really.
Yeah, that's pretty much only useful for like rendering farms or small rendering teams.
You know what's so funny, though, is we've seen that it's going to clearly be good at gaming, too. That's
yeah, I mean,
so
it will
funny.
probably still be fine at gaming. It's just if you're getting this for gaming, maybe consider getting not the $3,000 to $4,000 CPU. And
I want to touch on that too. I think it could easily cost $4,000. I mean, this is a higher clocked EPIC chip that's not as efficient. But man, if every 10% of performance actually did mean 10% more money made, I would be buying that 64 core in a second. And like 250, like a terabyte of RAM. My God, the God systems. Now we can truly make God systems. That's what's so exciting. But what I want to touch on about Threadripper as well is I keep seeing these channels. I keep seeing them go 3960X, 3970X, 3990X, which now it's not guessing, they've announced it. And then they'll put with question marks 48 core 3980X. I would not be so sure there's going to be a 48 core. Who is the 48 core for?
I mean, I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Like either you 24 cores or 32 cores, a standard overkill HEDT. Well, not overkill for some of these people. HEDT system, or you just want as many cores as you can get. So And they have like 80% yields on 7 nanometer now. They have tons of 8-core chiplets to use. And the way they distribute the loads over these chiplets, they can just go 4 inefficient chiplets and then 2 okay chiplets and then 2 godlike chiplets. And that thing will perform almost as well, maybe not quite as efficiently, but almost as well as if they used all God tier. They're saving most of the God tier chiplets for EPYC. So
yeah.
And so I just don't know who the 48 core would be for. Now, granted, they could launch one and it would make sense, but I just don't know why I would assume there will be a 48 core. Either you want 24 or 32 cores, or you just want 1,000 cores. You want as many cores as you can get. And the 64 core is mostly a prestige item. Well, no, the people doing rendering.
It's probably still useful for
It's
them.
a useful item, and it'll cost a lot. I would assume $4,000 too, actually, now I think about it.
Yeah.
Any less than that, and it's a bargain.
Well, if it's $4,000, if they go up linearly with the amount of threads. So
yeah, so it could be $5,000.
Yeah, who knows?
It can be whatever they want, but the problem is you start bumping into EPYC prices at that point.
Yeah,
which
that's true.
There's an argument that though a lot of people don't want EPYC, they just want a faster clock chip. So I don't know. Anyways, Mike Farino, thank you for the tip. Let's see what his question is. Do you think Ice Lake? Do you think Ice Lake is so much better than Skylake because they had an extra 2.5 years to work on it while waiting on 10 nanometer? Would be almost the same as AMD launching another architecture until Zen 5. I know that really puts things in perspective.
Yeah,
how much Intel's dropped the ball here. Honestly, I think what happened is Ice Lake, most of the design was kind of done. This is conjecture, right? This is my speculation. I like this idea that I've thrown around in my head. What if Ice Lake, right? They were talking about 10 nanometers since 2015. Well, probably before that, but they were talking about a launch since like 2016, like a launch in 2017.
Yeah.
And so the architect and Ice Lake was on roadmaps for a long time. So was Tiger Lake. I wouldn't be surprised if their overall architecture was designed in 2015, 2016, and they saw a 20% IPC gain and all these other benefits and efficiency. And they said, who cares if 10 nanometers too aggressive? If we get to it, we win. And they're like, well, what if it doesn't come out till 2018? And they're like, well, it'll be good enough, right? And it would have been. Imagine if Intel actually got Ice Lake out and on desktop, even just with 6 cores in 2017. 6 cores, 20% higher IPC at like an 80-watt TDP.
Yeah, that would have been competitive at
that would have crushed Zen.
Yeah.
That would have crushed Zen. And the problem is they threw caution to the wind. They also, I think, got a little comfortable and lazy and underestimated AMD, of course. And they just said, nope, we have to get to 10 nanometer. They have to. And the problem is when you double down, you're kind of forced to keep doubling down. And that's what I think Intel did. And that's why I think Ice Lake is impressive. But 10 nanometer was so, I guess, tunnel vision sought after because that was the plan the whole time. And they just knew they had to get to it.
Yeah, and they continually fucked that up and were never able to get to it, well, in an appreciable way until recently. But
yeah. And look, guys, I think Tiger Lake's going to be awesome. You know, you're going to have another, I think, 10% IPC increase over Ice Lake on a quad core. I mean, God, those laptops are going to be sick. I mean, it's to the point where I wonder if it'll beat the 9900K in gaming in some games that mostly use for. Oh, I mean, it will. That's going to be hilarious.
Yeah.
If like the best gaming chip you can get is a Tiger Lake NUC. I mean, it might happen, you know, but yeah, thank you for the question, Mike Farino. But I think that's what happened with Ice Lake. And I think that's why 10 nanometer was sought after so much is they just thought if they got to it by 2018, it doesn't matter if it's delayed. It just would have been a raffle stomp and it would have been, but now we're in 2019 and they can only make throttling laptop chips. So, yeah. All right. And Nabusad says you get a tip. Thanks for the tip, Nabusad. If you have let me see. He says I'm going to look for some of the things he's saying though, because I feel bad when people tip me without a question. Because again, the tip is so we notice your question. Although again, we will accept the 10 pounds. Thanks for the quid. Nabusad does say, to be honest, AMD is releasing a 64 core CPU will have limited supply. It's all about the mind share. Maybe. I don't know. I think people are underestimating how much supply there will be eventually.
Well, and if they're pretty efficient at manufacturing functional chiplets right now, do you think there would be a supply side issue unless
I just think they don't. I think they're going to make as many Threadrippers and 3950Xs as they can.
Yeah.
As long as they keep meeting epic demand. Right. So
Yeah,
I think that's what. So I think people who say this is a paper launch, it's like, well, it's not a paper launch in the US, as far as I can tell, for any of these products.
Unless, each of these stores are only getting like 100 or something. But
the guy in Chicago seemed to be
seemed pretty confident.
And I like that guy.
Yeah,
that guy was pretty dope.
Yeah,
he should have his own tech channel. I mean, he seemed like
he was very confident.
Yeah, he wore like a tuxedo vest too.
Yeah,
that guy doesn't sell CPUs; he sells CPUs. But yeah, I think what you got to remember about the 3950X is this: AMD doesn't need to sell any of them. They just want the mind share, and they'll supply as many as they can get now, as long as it doesn't affect Epic's supply. But over time, Epic will catch up with demand a little bit. Maybe. Actually, I'm not sure. But over time, I do expect, it's not confirmed, I do expect the supply to be better over time. And so just because you can't get one now does not mean you won't get one in January. And again, it's like, who is this for? You know, it's just everyone's buying it. I don't know what to tell you. There's supply and demand. The same with Threadripper. That 64-core Threadripper will be hard to get for the first month. But I think it'll slowly start to be in stock.
And I'll just add, like, pretty much almost every piece of PC hardware I've ever seen, the first month, it's usually kind of hard to get.
Yeah. But this... So look, I didn't try to get the 8700K, right? Intel had that design complete probably for a couple of years. And then they rushed it out at the end of 2017, I believe. Yeah, end of 2017. And my understanding is that was completely a paper launch. But so I don't know how that compares to the 3950X because I wasn't trying to buy the 8700K. But it feels like it was a little less availability. And then I remember people calling Vega a paper launch, and I got 5 in the first month. So that was not a paper launch, guys. I just had to refresh 5 tabs over and over for a week.
Yeah.
But I did, and I will do that with the 3950X. And if I just can't get one till January, I'll say, well, less availability than Vega. But if I end up getting one in the next week, I'll let you guys know, and we'll be able to tell. I just think it's too early to call it a paper launch. But what I would say is the 3950X seems more available than the 8700K was, but less than Vega. A lot less than Vega.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. All right. So, okay. We got more tips, though. Carbon Cry asks, next Intel real-world bench frying eggs on the IHS? I mean... with the amount of energy these things are using, I just love how you know what here's one thing I'll say, Carbon Cry. Why is everyone okay with Intel using tons of energy, but not AMD?
I don't know.
You know what I mean, right?
Because for most of the benchmarks I saw, like the discrepancies in power usage weren't super far off if you were at like 100% max usage for a similarly priced CPU. So I don't know.
But like, I remember, here's my problem. This is the thing I'm going to start hammering, I think. I saw Linus Tech Tips, who, you know, most of his reviews are very good. I thought his Cascade Lake X review was also, well, it was pretty funny. It was basically just shitting on Intel. But, I mean, he said, and of course, what did he say? He said, as far as I can tell, the 10980XE is begging to have a higher base clock, but they turned it down because of TDP restrictions.
Yeah.
And of course, it should be easily overclockable. And that's my understanding as well. I would not be surprised if you could clock all cores to like 4.5 gigahertz.
But it's just going to use
500 watts. Like quite literally, it'll probably use 500 watts. And he says, but you'll need a custom water cooling loop for that. And I don't get why that's okay. Why is it okay to just go, you'll want a custom water cooling loop or a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler for this with Intel. With AMD, you know, and then they just complain about something from AMD's power usage. I just don't get why there's this double standard. It's like, that's insane. I would give, to be honest, if I had the money, which I certainly do not yet, to review all of these chips at launch, like if I got an Intel chip that required 500 watts of cooling, I would just give it an instant F. Instant F.
Well, especially if that's not what the usage they're advertising, yes.
Like, And I just hate these reviews that show overclocking, and they're like, but make sure you have a good liquid cooler, and it beats AMD. It's using double the energy. It's using triple the energy.
Then you're also factoring in the price of the cooler to the CPU. So if you consider those a one package thing, I guess you could arguably do that as well. But
yeah,
you have to have the addendum, and you should also get this expensive water cooler.
Yeah.
And a case that fits it.
I guess one thing I will add to this is I do not expect Intel to send me any CPUs for review. It's probably not going to be kind to them. Although I would say this, I gave an Intel laptop. Dan, can you hand me the regular laptop?
The nice Portland, Maine laptop.
I like Portland, Maine.
It's a nice city.
I gave this a glowing review, and an AMD laptop a horrible review. So there's a chance if HP sent me an Intel laptop, I'd say this is awesome, but it's just on desktop. I just don't see how big of a fanboy do you need to be to like
right now very big.
Like I mean, defend Intel. I mean,
Ryzen 1, Ryzen 2, there was still a defense, I would say, I guess, but at this point there's really not.
Yeah. And I mean, and look at who I am. Intel system, Intel mining rig over there, Intel mining rig over there. I have all these Intel chips. I'm not a fanboy. It's just I don't know how you can defend Intel anymore. I don't know. You have an Intel desktop.
I haven't built it yet, so I technically
Dan is still an Intel shill. And a round earth shill. We got to move on here. Preston Morton writes in, question below. Did AMD delay Big Navi because of NVIDIA 3000 series? I mean, I don't think so.
I mean, I really have nothing to say. I think we should go to you saying that you don't have that much to say about Big Navi at this point.
No, because, and I've given this spiel a million times at this point, I feel like, if you listen to Broken Silicon, but I'll give it again real quick. Like, Adored got his Navi info late 2018. Guys, like I do trust Adored doesn't share things unless he knows what he's talking about. He's one of those people, and you can call me an idiot and him an idiot, and I'm sure thousands of you are right now. But I trust him, and I think that leak was legitimate, but they ran into the power issues. They changed everything about the design, or at least they changed their lineup. They launched the RX 5700 XT. I received some information. I think I put it out too quickly without analyzing it. I freely admit that. So I pulled those videos. But I feel like that's the most updated thing is they were planning these hybrid chips. And then they just said, we don't need to yet. Let's just do it right, which is probably the right decision.
Yeah.
But so I don't think they delayed it because of NVIDIA. And I've been very outspoken about this. I do not think Not Ampere is coming out until late 2020. For those who wonder why I call it Not Ampere, sounds like they can't call it Ampere because of copyright reasons.
Wait, what?
There's a company that has an Ampere chip. So I don't think AMD. I think AMD is doing their own thing from this point forward, and it's working. It's working very well for them. The 5700 XT is selling like gangbusters, despite what some people still don't acknowledge for some reason. So I think AMD just doesn't care.
Yeah, and they'll probably put whatever comes next sometime in the middle of next year.
But I think there is a big Navi coming first half of next year. So just so you guys know, this video will come out. Well, it's out now. And then the Sapphire interview, right? I interviewed a Sapphire the head of Sapphire North American PR or one of the PR reps. And he will have his interview go live on Wednesday. So that's the roadmap for this week. This is a lot of content, lots of minutes of stuff to watch. And then on Wednesday, the new podcast comes out where I interview Sapphire. Friday, Die Shrink. But that Sapphire interview, he basically confirmed that there's no toxic edition of the 5700 XT.
Just unfortunate because
I'll tell you guys that early. But they were considering one. I kind of do the best I can to get as much information as I can. You'll enjoy the interview, I think. But no toxic 5700 XT. And if you ask me, that means a bigger Navi's coming. Because you would want to launch a toxic edition
for their high-end.
The highest end. Yeah. The only reason they would cancel that if a bigger one is coming. So it is coming. But I think it's like, I don't know, probably April or June.
Yeah.
I don't know, somewhere around there. So that's coming. It's coming pretty soon. All right, let's see. More reader mail or more tip questions, we'll say. Luca B says, hi, how can you be assuming that only new Intel security flaws will be emerging. AMD had a few. Greetings from Italy. What is it? Buonasera?
Yeah.
Is that good evening?
I think so. I'm sorry if that's the wrong word.
I think it's correct. We've been in Italy quite a few. Buonasera, Luca. AMD had a few too. By the way, from which US state are you broadcasting? Well, we're not going to say. We're from the Midwest. But someday we'll probably tell you. But here's one thing. Here's one way I think about the Intel security flaws. So Intel's been effectively on the same, well, I mean, some people would argue they've been on the same architecture for 15 years, but they've literally been on the same architecture for desktop 14 nanometer since Skylake. If you give hackers 10 years with one architecture, they will find weird tricks to do. So Luca, what I would ask is look up how some of these security vulnerabilities look. It's like timings and cache communication. It's like ridiculous stuff.
It's been developed by people that know this architecture like the back of their hand.
Yeah, and so that's why there's so many Intel security vulnerabilities is, look, if you give anyone anything, a car, anything, any device that's mechanical or electrical for a decade, there will be bizarre weaknesses you can find. If you look, it's just so old.
Yeah, people will always find a way to hack something if you give it enough time.
Exactly. And Intel gave these people 10 years. So that's why I think AMD is going to continue to have far fewer security vulnerabilities. Although I will say this, everyone I talked to at that Intel Hot Wings thing, and also AMD people at Hot Chips. Oh, yeah. Well, Hot Wings at Hot Chips.
Hot Wings at, okay.
And then the other people at Hot Chips, including ARM people, when they talk about security, they're just like, well, there's a lot more people attacking these attack surfaces now. Mm-hmm. With how centralized the cloud is, it's about what can you gain? Is it worth putting in months of time with a research team to find a way to hack a processor if your goal is to hack me at my house? Probably not worth the money. But if they know Amazon has tens of thousands, well, hundreds, millions of customers that you can hack their information, it's worth that money to hack an Intel processor. Yeah. And so the reward for hacking's never been higher, and Intel's allowed their architecture to rot.
Yeah, and I mean, and if AMD remained on this same basic architecture for the next 10 years, we would probably see a bunch of security vulnerabilities come out from them too.
Yeah, if they use Zen 1 for 10 years, it'd be an issue, but they're not. They're completely redesigned. They've redesigned it for Zen 2. They're going to redesign it for Zen 3. Zen 4, from what I can tell, is going to be a radical redesign like Zen 2's level. That's like late 2021, 2022, probably 2022. You know, that's what keeps you ahead, right? And it's obvious if you look at Intel's architectures and they say like Sandy Bridge is like literally the easiest thing to hack.
Yeah, of course.
So, all right. Thank you for your question, Luca. We have another one here from N Me Rightly. He says, do you think AMD should stagger the desktop a year behind server if supply continues to be an issue? If AMD has to go 5 nanometer due to pressure from TSMC, this comes from like a Cortex video.
Yeah.
Desktop parts may suffer. Will help desktop chips too. I think AMD shouldn't delay anything unless they need to.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're saying which one should they prioritize, I mean, if that's what's most profitable, they probably would choose to do that, right?
Yeah, but I gotta say, the way AMD's strategy is working right now is actually pretty brilliant. Intel made like a decided decision to like have, you remember Sandy Bridge E come out like a year after Sandy Bridge? Well, Ivy Bridge was out there.
Yeah, and they did that for a long time.
Yeah, and they're basically not doing that as much anymore. But they're still kind of doing it. I think the way AMD does it is it's not a decided decision. Like, so, and we touched on this like 10 minutes ago. The way AMD is handling this is we'll get the 3950X out and we'll supply as many as we can. But guess what? Epic comes first, then Threadripper supply, then 3950X. All right. So I think that's AMD's strategy is why not have a Halo product? Why not supply as many as we can? But we're going to supply as many as we can. We're not going to do this ridiculous thing where Zen plus Threadripper comes out around Zen 2. I mean, how freaking dumb would that be? And they can't, because Intel was upgrading like 10% performance per watt every year.
Yeah.
AMD can't afford to do that. I mean, if they launch Zen plus Threadripper within 6 months of Zen 2, what a joke.
Yeah.
So AMD's innovating at a rate where I just don't think they can do that yet. And with 3D stacking coming, I don't think they're going to be able to afford to do that probably ever.
I mean, yeah, if you look at like the IPC gains are just gains in general that Intel has had. It's been relatively incremental. So if you can just get more cores, it's might be worth just delaying it a year, like they used to with the what was it called, the E series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let us move on. Ampere does ARM servers. Just recently came out with some news, I believe. Yeah, that's right, Carbon Cry. Ampere is an ARM server chip manufacturer or something. Uh-oh. What's this here? So Carbon Cry says see below. Carbon Cry writes, based on Wikichip info, 5 nanometer is slated for super short-term ramp, and area gain means much more chips per wafer. Yeah. So, which again, this is what's going to continue to happen. I guess clock speeds are not going up anymore. Like 7 nanometer EUV is it. We're getting to 5 gigahertz and we're stopping. That's the wall. We'll see if we get to 5 gigahertz. Don't want to commit to that. We saw that ended up before. But density is going to continue to increase, and with density can come efficiency. And so I think things are going to continue to be able to be made much smaller and more efficient. But the clock speed advantage thing is pretty much gone. So they'll have to focus more and more on IPC.
Yeah,
which you can get from smaller nodes. But yeah, I mean, and 5 nanometers ramping up shortly.
I mean, it seems like they're planning on doing that pretty fast. Getting to 5 nanometer from 7 nanometer.
Yeah. And again, I wouldn't be so sure we know. Again, I think the whole TSMC pressuring AMD stuff, let's see what actually happens. I wouldn't, it's an interesting idea, but I think it's you don't need a source. I think it's obvious. TSMC holds all the cards now, so we should expect them to dictate some terms. But I also wouldn't assume anyone has all the power. Apple doesn't have all the power. AMD doesn't have all the power. TSMC has a lot of power, but not all of it. There's always other ways of doing things. I'd say all the things that have happened in the past few years, no worst case scenarios have happened.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see.
We haven't seen like a factory go down or a fab go down or
no. Well, and you always be able to make something. Nabusa, you just tipped me again. As a service desk analyst, I think when AMD get to Zen 4, they might start to refresh like Zen 4 Plus, for instance, to make more. Yeah, I don't know. Because here's what you got to think about. AMD continues to ramp up to new nodes more and more often. This is something I've talked about before. 7 nanometer EUV, I believe, is at like 70% yields.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then 7 nanometer non-EUV, is at like 80%. But so if EUV catches up, why would they not just switch to Zen 3? What would be the point of a Zen 2 Plus? It would be cheaper to make Zen 3.
Yeah, once again, I don't know, unless for some reason they couldn't launch Zen 3 because of some issue.
And so that's something you guys got to think about. This is a big misconception I think people have is right now 7 nanometer is still expensive, but the reason you move to a smaller node is because overall it's cheaper. Maybe every wafer is more expensive, but they have double the density. So it's actually cheaper to make the same chip die shrunk on that wafer, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that they'll just make like they might make a Zen 3 Plus. I could actually see that.
Yeah, I could see them. And if they're still maintaining dominance, I could see them spinning their wheels a little bit.
But let's be very clear about that. If they get to like 5 nanometer and they're given enough capacity, which we'll see, that's going to be cheaper to make the same thing on that. And if it's cheaper and they have a design for Zen 4 done, they'll just use Zen 4. They're not going to make a Zen 3 Plus. Zen 3 Plus will be there to buy time, which brings me to Zen Plus. Again, Zen Plus was there because Zen 2 is a radical redesign. They had to wait years, and they found some, latency and cache tweaks, Infinity Fabric tweaks to net them another 3-5% IPC and higher clock speeds on 12 nanometer. So if you can get another 10% boost and it costs you nothing, might as well do a Zen 2 plus, do Zen 1 Plus if you have a year to buy, which they did. They had a year to wait for Zen 2, so they might as well get something out.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do it to just make more money. Well, they did to make money, but again, if there's a Zen 3 Plus, it's because Zen 4 is 2 years away, not because they're milking.
Yeah,
I guess that's my point.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true.
Yeah, okay, so right, notes down. Carbon Cry, did you just leak Zen 3 5 gigahertz? Yeah, that's right. That's a Red Gaming Tech source right there.
Tom.
What?
My leak is Zen 3 plus 5 gigahertz.
Uh,
So that's the leak, right?
I was just fed the leak from Dan right here. All right. You want a little more?
Sure.
All right. We're pouring a wee bit more. It's pretty strong, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Stronger than I was expecting.
Well, it's got as much alcohol as wine.
Oh, shit.
Is that all there is in there?
Yeah.
There's not. There's more, isn't there?
Well,
this is like the heaviest bottle ever.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's some bullshit, huh?
Sorry.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Ash gave us an insane tip. What the hell? No question. I don't do Patreon and you guys don't do PayPal. No, I reserve PayPal for like funding for going to Hot Chips and like big payments for specific things. I don't give out PayPal. I don't really like PayPal, to be honest, but it's there it serves a purpose.
I've only ever used PayPal for eBay, so.
Yeah. Thank you for the tip, Ash.
That was very nice of you, though.
Yeah, if you want to do this, I mean, you just tipped 5 net burst level, 5 months of net burst. I mean, I guess I'll say this, Ash, if you want me to add you to the Discord, just send me a thing and I will, for sure. Use your YouTube account, your YouTube email address to email my YouTube email address, though, so I know it's you. More tips from people that I wish would ask questions because I feel bad when they don't ask a question and tip us. But let's see, janeair.com. What I will do is look for something. Oh, he asked a question. Good. i7 3930K, like 77 and 980 Ti. Well, I mean, that's like an Ivy Bridge quad core HEDT, I believe. You don't need to tell me. I know. This seems to be a bad time to build a gaming PC. See, I do work on this computer as well. Okay. Think I should buy a new PC late 2020. Well, so again, I think the paradigm for upgrading, if we go before 2017, so I'm talking the era of Intel's utter dominance. We're like 2010 through 2016. Mm-hmm. This era, if you timed your upgrades right, it made sense. Like if you got a 290X and a Haswell i7, you're still sitting pretty.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if it was like a Haswell E. If you got a Sandy Bridge E 6-core, and I don't know, honestly, like what was there? I mean, and like some kind of crazy powerful graphics card that could last you till now. Those days are over. AMD is shaking up the market. We have new entrants in the GPU space. We have a new startup, Nuvia, making CPU that might enter the CPU.
Those are going to be mostly server CPUs at this point, though,
sure,
as far as I understand.
But ARM's still trying to get into consumer laptops and stuff. We have new entrants coming everywhere for GPUs and CPUs. AMD is resurgent. Things are innovating again. What does that mean? Buy when you need the upgrade. If I can get a hold of the 3950X, I will. I think I'd like to provide a review for you guys, to be honest. And also, I will use it. You'll see you would have seen in my 3950X or 3960X video where I show that I play 64-player multiplayer Battlefield with Dan while rendering a 2-hour video, while uploading a 2-hour video, while having 10 Chrome tabs open so I can switch between things. I mean, right? I have ADHD. I'm forced to do 10 things at once or I die. I'm like a shark. If I stop swimming, I suffocate. So, which is true. So, like, I will use that concurrency, but I'm willing to wait for it. My 6700K still works, so that's what it's about. Do you need it? Will you benefit from it right now? Then buy exactly what you need and don't look back.
Which is what I did, basically. I mean, I got a CPU for a very good price. It's going to outperform my CPU that I have right now by a lot, but yeah. Ultimately, if I still had that Broadwell i7 and it was functioning perfectly, I don't think I would upgrade quite yet.
Yeah, you had to underclock your RAM and stuff just to make sure it doesn't crash. It hasn't crashed lately, though, right?
I haven't had a crash in a few weeks.
It may have been the RAM.
Yeah.
But it's, he has DDR3.
I don't want to buy DDR3 a fucking again.
There's no point in buying DDR3, so Dan's kind of forced to upgrade. And that's when you upgrade. When you're forced to, or if you will get the benefit now. But otherwise, there's always something new around the corner. And again, some people would say that's always been true. That was true in the 90s, the early 2000s. That has not been true since Sandy Bridge dominated. That has not been true. If you bought a Sandy Bridge i7, you were set until like last year. Like,
yeah.
I mean, and you arguably are still set if you just do 60 hertz gaming. I mean, it's not till the next gen consoles that you should really worry. All right, let's see. We got another tip here. Nabusad says, do you see AMD continuing to dominate after 5 or 7 years? Well, it depends what you mean. 5 or 7 years from now? I don't know.
I think that's too far out to guess.
I mean, especially because they'll be competing with RISC-V startups and stuff, probably.
If you lay out the case for like, if the best case for what is it, Cascade Lake comes out next year, it's
well, I mean,
not next
Tiger
year,
Lake on laptop,
yeah.
Rocket Lake, Comet Lake desktop, 2021. If we're lucky, we will get some kind of Meteor Lake 10 nanometer chips, I believe is what it's called. But no bets on how Intel pans out. Their track record has not been great.
Yeah,
I only report what they're trying to do. Again, guys, I'm not saying Intel's going to succeed in any of my leaks. I just think you should know what they're trying to do. I'm
just saying if that also turns out in the ideal situation for Intel, maybe they aren't dominant in 5 years. But 5 to 7 years from now is pretty far out, I would say.
But I have someone I talk to a lot who gets roadmaps early, and he says the stuff coming for Zen 3 and 4 is nuts. Right.
Yeah.
I can't say more than that. That I've been hinted at from several sources who just are unwilling to share the information yet that even Zen 3, that we might not have the full story on Zen 3, and that Zen 4 and 5 is going to be nuts. So I would not assume Intel is going to come back. I think what I will predict is this: 2020 is going to be fucking terrible for Intel, I think.
2020?
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. Like, I think.
I mean, if the end of this
that's when you might get an all-time high for AMD stock.
Yeah.
Although not financial advice.
Yeah, not financial.
If you want financial advice, you got to listen to the people who crash the stock market.
Watch Jim Cramer.
Watch Jim Cramer, who's right.
Mad
Money.
He's right. He's right a little more often than random, I think.
Well, oh, really? Because I heard the opposite.
Oh, maybe I'm misremembering.
Well, he's maybe slightly better than a monkey throwing darts. So you got to listen to this guy. But he's entertaining, though. Mm-hmm. Pretty damning indictment of a guy I actually kind of like. But he thought Intel should be investigated too. That guy was funny. And I agree with him, which they are being investigated actually. But so again, I think AMD is 2020 in the bag. I think 2021 probably they still have it in the bag. 2022 probably, but it's more like a probably. I think AMD has 2020 in the bag. 2021 is most likely. 2022 is,
if you have a gun
over 50%, I would say. If you put a gun up to my head, will AMD be in charge in 2022? I'll be like, yes. After that, though, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I think the most likely outcome is all of these companies get their shit together and keep innovating. I think we're entering a golden age of innovation in PCs finally.
Hopefully. Yeah.
I certainly hope so. Honestly. Another question from Luca B. What do you think about AMD using only TSMC as a sole source? I think it'd be a mistake, and I don't know why they're doing that. If TSMC blows up, AMD is doomed. Well, if any of these foundries were to blow up, everyone would be fucked because they take a pie of the overall capacity of silicon. Like, there'd be a huge shortage. I've had to deal with this in the automotive industry where a plastic tubing supplier, their plant blew up. And so everyone was like, we can't build cars, possibly.
And maybe I'm misremembering this, but there was an issue with like a RAM manufacturer in Taiwan like 5 years ago
Well, there are those floods, too, that affected hard drives.
Yeah, that jacked up the prices of like storage and RAM for a couple of years, and they doubled in price almost, I think, because of that. Yeah,
so look, if TSMC blew up, which I guess I don't know how that would happen besides like a war with China over Taiwan.
Yeah,
that would suck, but like I think it would take something that big for TSMC to go down. So I don't think that's likely, but look, I'm surprised AMD isn't using global foundries on as many things. Like I was talking to Chris about this from the good old gamer, and I don't like Polaris works. Like, I don't know why they didn't take like the RX 590 and just give it GDR6.
Yeah,
and then charge 150. Like, that would have been, It would have been better than a 1660 Super with that bandwidth.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, you've brought that up.
Like, so that does perplex me. I'm not sure why AMD isn't using more than TSMC. I mean, the 5500, I really did expect to be on the Global Foundry 12 nanometer FDX, but it's not. So, but those options are there, guys, and they're talking to Samsung, right?
Yeah,
like AMD's had meetings with Samsung, so they will move away if they have to.
Yeah, maybe they would consider that in the future if capacity is an issue, or if TSMC isn't giving them enough capacity, or
I think
whatever
they're always considering everybody too. But I think the reason they went with the 5500 is they decided it was the best choice.
Yeah,
and that's that. It's a 150 millimeter squared chip, so it's really cheap to make. And I don't know, but it is a concern though. TSMC is a concern.
Yeah,
I think we've rambled about this long enough. All right, let's see any other. Okay, we got a tip here from Philip Engel, who says, "Hey guys, do you have a clue why there aren't really any OLED gaming monitors available?" Yes. Do you think there are any on the way in the next few years? Are there some good? So, okay, a few things here, Philip. Number one, I love my OLED monitor that has the screensaver going behind us. It's great. It's too big for my desk though, but I got it because I'm like a cinephile. We love watching movies on it. You know, we watch The Sisters Brothers.
Yeah, watch The Sisters Brothers.
Great Western, by the way. And you know, even in 1080p, the OLED, the black levels, it looks better.
Yeah,
it looks so good. It doesn't need to be in 4K. It benefits all content. Even lower res content looks great on it. So OLED is really great. And I would say last year's model, 2018, was the first time where you could get it for a TV and not worry about burn-in. Because the 2017 models did have burn-in if you used it a lot, they said. Okay. 2018, there's not a lot of evidence there's burn-in unless you're trying to break the damn thing, which I have an issue with people pointing to that like it means anything. 2019, they're starting to put them into laptops. I forgot who started doing that. I think Dell has one. They're starting to put OLED into laptops. They would not do that if it had burn-in issues. And Dell, for instance, had burn-in issues with that 5K OLED. They basically just discontinued it after a month of sales. So I think in other words, I think in 2017, we were to the point where OLED made sense for real film lovers. 2018, OLED made sense for consoles, gaming, but not for a desktop where I just leave these monitors on all day, 24/7 sometimes. 2020 will be the time where I think they get OLED burn-in issues in enough where it makes sense for desktop. And I think LG is rumored to be bringing out an OLED lineup in 2020. So I think there's your answer. I think late 2020, we're going to start to see that. And look, that TV is going to be $1,200 early next year. Half what I paid for it. And I think a smaller screen costs less. They're gonna charge. I mean, if they're willing to sell that for $1,200 next year, they will sell desktop monitors that are gaming for $1,000 probably, right?
I guess also I haven't looked into this at all, but are there any like of those off-brand South Korean OLED monitors?
I have not seen any.
Okay, so
maybe there will be some, but I haven't seen any. And I would honestly be a little. Well, what I would say is, I remember my PlayStation Vita that has OLED. It looks fantastic, but it's definitely like bargain bin OLED. Like,
well, that thing is, and it's like a 540p screen too.
Yeah. So what I would say is, I bet the color would look great for like knockoff Chinese and South Korean monitors that use OLED. But my Vita, so when that TV, well, you can tell, right? When the screensaver disappears, it's perfect black levels. That Vita, when the screen goes black, it's like splotchy black levels. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, which I don't know.
I'd say worry about that. It'll look great while gaming, but I will say any knockoff OLEDs, I would be concerned about like color accuracy and stuff like that. But you should always worry
I guess
about
I'm not advocating to get an off-brand OLED monitor, but
I mean,
if
maybe
they exist,
I bet the response time will be just as good though. So if you're like a competitive gamer, it'd probably be the best option.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still use a 1080p monitor. I want to get like a 5K editing monitor next year, but I'll wait. I'll wait until it's good. Just like I don't need to upgrade now. I will wait for the 3950X to be in stock. And I keep advocating that people just wait for OLED. Don't buy a goddamn CRT. Come on, guys.
That thing.
You know, unfortunately, the best gaming monitor right now is a 55-inch TV from LG. I don't know what to tell you. You know, that's the best gaming monitor. It has really low response times. It looks gorgeous. But I'm just willing to wait for, and I guess the last thing I'll say is, why is there not anything with monitors right now? I mean, look at the price gouging. Look what they're charging for these monitors with 384 dimming zones. Millions, billions of dimming zones. Each pixel's millions. Each pixel's a dimming zone on that thing. Each pixel, that millions of dimming zones, and they're charging $2,000 for a 384 dimming zone Asus monitor.
Yeah.
And what a joke! They're just price gouging. And if people, here's what I would say too. How old's your 4K monitor?
I got it in 2014.
So
it's
Dan,
5 years old.
Yeah, you were still using 7950 Crossfire. So, which was not good at 4K.
Yeah, so I sold that, one of them. But.
Yeah, and then you got a 390, and it's been smooth sailing pretty much since. And then a Vega.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you needed more RAM.
Yeah.
But so, like, Dan's had a 4K 60 5 millisecond delay monitor since 2014.
I got that for $600.
And it was Samsung. It wasn't a knockoff brand. It was Samsung. And now here we are, 5 years later. 5 years later. And I guess the only difference is it's IPS and like $400. Like, they're price gouging.
Yeah.
1440p. I think monitors hit an all-time low in prices 3 years ago and then just haven't changed. And that's ridiculous.
But yeah, I can't remember the method of lighting mine used right now, but it is significantly worse than what most modern monitors use right now.
It still looks good though.
It looks good, but
it has a lower response time than most.
Yeah, black levels aren't super great on my monitor though.
Yeah, so I guess that's what I will say is, I mean, look, as long as people will keep buying 1440p monitors, lower resolution than my goddamn phone for $400, they're going to keep selling you these monitors that cost $100 to make. As long as you keep buying them for $400, they're going to keep making them. Now, eventually, LG or someone will come in and disrupt the market, but we're just not quite there yet. And it's just annoying.
Yeah.
I just remember looking at 4K IPS monitors. Brock got one for $350. FreeSync, IPS, color accurate, 4K, $350. That's 3 years. There's 3 years, 2016. Yeah, that was 3 years ago. Not any cheaper. In fact, the prices have gone up. So great. People keep buying them. They'll charge more. It's just so annoying to me. All right, let's see here. We have a question here from Curtis Gross. Thoughts on AMD APUs showing up in the latest Mac OS?
I haven't seen anything about that, so I don't really know.
Yeah, that might become part of our podcast, which is something to remember. We'll have a new podcast come out next week on like Wednesday as well, or Tuesday.
Right. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll probably talk about that there too after we do more research. But I mean, look, if AMD APUs are showing up in the latest Mac OS, they're probably going to use it. That's interesting, though.
Yeah, I mean, there was
because they're using Ice Lake and stuff.
Yeah,
I think.
At least
Comet Lake.
I don't keep up with.
Yeah, I haven't kept up on Mac for a while. I really don't like their past couple of years of laptops, and I used to own a MacBook Air, so I'm no fanboy or anti-Mac person by any means.
Yeah,
I guess my channel could be called Sometimes an Apple Fan, or I guess rarely
once
an
Apple.
Once in a blue moon, an Apple fan.
One time I owned an Apple product.
One time I've owned one Apple product. All right, but yeah, I mean, if it's showing up in the Mac OS, they're probably going to put it in something.
Yeah,
maybe their NUC, that little Mac Mini.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. All right, let's see what else we got.
One of those for work.
Yeah, Dan uses Macs for work. All right, let's see. Here we go. Zach Martin. Again, the Bill Clinton freaking out face makes me laugh. What about micro LED? How does it compare to OLED? So I used to do a lot more panel analysis when I got that TV and did reviews and stuff about it. But my understanding is micro LED is going to be micro OLED. I don't remember. That's not micro IPS. Micro OLED. I remember that being like cheaper probably in the future. I mean, I
don't remember that.
I will say this. I see a lot of people sending me questions. They don't do it lately, but they did when I reviewed that TV. People kept sending me questions. Well, what do you think about this panel technology? What do you think about this panel technology? I think a lot of them might be good. But what I know is right now, OLED exists. And it's the best. And it's not even close.
Yeah.
And you've seen it now for a few days finally, Dan. Would you say it's just...
Yeah, it looks great.
I mean, it has perfect response time. perfect black levels. It's not as bright as the other things, but they keep getting brighter every iteration. And its color is just gorgeous. I mean, OLED is kind of perfect now, especially now that they mostly solved the burn-in issues. So I think most iterations moving forward will just be better longevity and lower prices, because you literally can't beat OLED. Like, each pixel turns off. You literally can't get better black levels. The color is gorgeous, and response times literally can't be better. So the only thing we can improve is price and longevity moving forward. So whatever panel question you send me, what do I think about it? I hope it's cheaper. That's all I really have to say, right?
Yeah, and I don't remember the exact technology behind micro LED right now. So
no, I don't remember right now. We
I
just drank a bottle of old stock.
I remember
so
4 months ago, I would have known what that was.
I did. I used to be much more knowledgeable, but that's something we might talk about again then in the podcast or something. All right, let's see. No more tips. How many ounces was this dumb thing? 500 milliliters. Oh, so it wasn't a full wine bottle then?
No, a little smaller.
It's 2/3 of a wine bottle. Okay. I resent how heavy and thick they made this.
Yeah.
Fucking with you a little bit there, huh? All right. Oh. Yep, that's the next one. Nabusad writes in and says, "Do you think
graphite will replace
he
silicon?"
thinks I think he means graphene. Do you think
Do
you think graphene? Well, I don't think graphite will, so if that's what you asked. Do you think graphene will replace silicon in the future?
You've made videos about this before, like potentially, but probably a while from now if it happens.
And not everything. And this is something Cortex talked about too, and I completely agree with him. I think he's a little more optimistic about when it will become standard than I am. I think my overall belief is that we're just now figuring out what we can even do with silicon. Like, we've been so tunnel visioned on just node shrink and node shrink and node shrink, even when it costs more money. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't node shrink. Oh shit, we could 3D stack this and get a 100% IPC increase. What are we doing? So I think silicon is it. Look, guys, silicon is cheap. When I've started to do that when I analyze price just to give people perspective, where I'm like, guys, like those i3s are like $20. Like it's so cheap to make silicon that the problem is graphene doesn't just need to be better, but it needs to be better than 50 years of innovation on silicon.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And I think there will be, but I think there's going to be 3D stacked chips that will make this bridge make sense. Because honestly, graphene doesn't make sense when you are so good at silicon right now. But if we can 3D stack, well, maybe we make a core on graphene and then the rest of the chip on silicon and 3D stack them. You can do that. And so I think that's going to be the bridge where we slowly roll out more and more graphene products. But I mean, I expect graphene to become showing up in stuff in like 4 years, 5 years.
I mean,
it's hard to say.
Have we even seen an academic paper being written?
Yeah. They made them.
Okay, because I think I don't keep up
but
with
they're
that.
Like, they really over represent how good
because
they are.
Until you see an academic paper on it, don't expect to see it in an actual product for probably like a decade.
We've seen them maybe a little less than a decade ago. We had papers, and they're making prototypes now. So yeah, I mean, I think graphene, I don't think anything's going to replace silicon. I think it will supplement silicon.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying with graphene chips. Like, academics creates it and then industry makes it good.
Yeah.
Usually.
So I think we answered your question. All right, let's see. We got another one from I got two more here. Carbon Cry writes in, what do you think of character limits on Discord and Twitter? Here, I believe they constitute torture under international law. Well, I studied international law, so you have no actual claim, Carbon Cry. But I don't believe there were any old wooden ships that crashed due to character limits, which is basically all international law kind of comes down to where did a old wooden ship crash.
Well, and that is important.
I mean, I certainly love that. I mean, I'd love to argue about old wooden ships, the Civil War era. It's an Anchorman reference. But honestly, I get it now. I used to shit on Twitter. I get it. The idea of Twitter is you get like a couple hundred characters, and it's like you put out an idea quick, and then you continue the thread. I think people that do like 1, part 2, part 3 on Twitter are just like, you just shouldn't do this on Twitter. Like, that's not the reason to use Twitter. But I don't know. And I think the character limit on Discord is good because I think some of your reader mails are too long. If you can't communicate a message in the few paragraphs, do you really expect me to read that on air?
What's the character limit on Discord?
I haven't noticed. I've never hit it.
Okay. Oh, it's 200. Okay. So that's enough to include
It's not 200.
one idea,
That's
right?
Twitter.
I'm looking at the message thing. It's 0 out of 200.
I know that's YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Never mind.
The character limits on YouTube. Again, this is kind of very Twitterish right now. I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not sharing links or anything. I mean, I think the character limits make sense for the formats that they have. Discord is, quick communication back and forth, a few paragraphs at a time. It's not meant to be email. If you want to send me something, Carbon Cry, that's a paper, we have email. But yeah, Michael Kerr writes in, Tesla CyberTruck. I was waiting. I was like, someone's going to ask about the CyberTruck. So I will put this, I have it as a thing in our next podcast.
I mean,
I kind of want to talk about it.
I think the CyberTruck's cool.
Yeah, so me and Dan had mixed opinions, I think, when you first saw it, which everyone should have because it's so bizarre. But the one thing I want to say about the CyberTruck is this. Maybe I'll say it again in the podcast. We'll see. Let me actually write that down. Probably put a timestamp at CyberTruck, right? Let's see. But yeah, so my opinion on the CyberTruck is this. I like Blade Runner. I think it looks cool. 500-mile range. Bulletproof once they fix the glass. And I mean, they hit the metal with a sledgehammer and it did nothing. That's sick.
Yeah.
And to anyone who wants a durable vehicle, it looks like the CyberTruck will be that. And I wouldn't be so sure how it looks at the end. They have 2 years to tweak the design a little bit for things. But I think people who get a pickup truck usually want just something, durability, power, able to go anywhere. And I mean, I think that's what Tesla's trying to do.
Yeah.
Now, the main complaint I see is people say it looks so weird, which I think it's split. Like half of the people say, I'm glad it's weird. Let's get some weird shit out there. Why does everything look the same? And then the other half go, well, this isn't going to sell to truck buyers. Dude, have you seen truck drivers right now? They roll coal and park their fucking diesel trucks blocking charging stations for Tesla. They were never going to buy this truck. So that's my opinion, is Tesla is trying to make their strategy. We're not trying to sell this truck to fucktards who were never going to buy this truck anyways.
Yeah, I mean, maybe go to a person that actually needs to use the truck
for
some reason. Or, because, I mean, we're from the Midwest. We see a ton of people that drive trucks.
And we have friends who have trucks
that will never tow anything.
They never tow anything. And if what you want is a big red Ford or GMC truck or something, that's fine. But I just don't think the people that want a big red truck want the Tesla CyberTruck, nor would they ever want it. So what Elon Musk is trying to do is expand who would buy a truck. And how do you do that? You make it so clearly more durable, powerful, bulletproof, literally, that anyone who was considering a tough all-terrain vehicle in the past will buy this. This is to sell to people in Silicon Valley, to sell to, a more liberal crowd that goes camping, that wants something where when the American Second Civil War happens, their truck is durable and survives in the desert. And I just don't think people that buy these inefficient trucks were ever going to buy this in the first place.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion. I just think I think if you want a Chevy or a Ford, you're always going to buy that. And Tesla's trying to expand the market. We'll see if it works. I'm not saying it's going to pan out, but I think I've seen a very lack of understanding of what their strategy is. And I think that's very clear. That's what their strategy. All right. So I think that's our opinion, right?
Yeah.
How do you think it looks, though?
I think it looks cool.
I mean, I think it looks cool. But I'm not someone who would ever buy a truck. Although I got to say that truck makes me consider buying a truck again, right?
If you had $80,000 to spend on a
40.
truck. 40 for the shitty one.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of people who buy $80,000 trucks, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Tax write-off, so you can just... I wonder if I pissed people off talking about that. Let's see. To a warthog. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, the sledgehammer cracked the glass. Clearly, they need new glass, but the paneling seemed impressive. You can use it as a generator. That's sick. You just power your house for a while. As an adult film star, I might buy it. Are you really an adult film star? That's kind of hilarious. I mean, good for you, bro. Get it, man. I'm sure there's shady people on set. Round shirt Earth guy would be great in porn. I don't think you're looking to get into porn, Dan. That's kind of the last thing you're interested in doing, if I know you well. Give it a year, Chevy will have an electric Camaro truck.
I hope they do.
Maybe. We just drove a Camaro.
Yeah.
It was nice.
I don't like fast cars that much.
Dan hates fast cars. He gets mad if I drive a fast car. Fast. Is Zen 3 going to be Sandy Bridge of AMD? I mean, I think AMD's Sandy Bridge was Zen 2. I think Zen 3 is Ivy Bridge. That's going to be the one where you go, this is over.
Yeah.
And again, I think Ivy Bridge was every bit as almost as impressive as Sandy Bridge, but I think underestimated. Again, think of it this way. Ivy Bridge had slightly higher base clock speeds and boost clocks. It had about 5%, 6% more IPC, and then it also had like 30% less power usage. I mean, that's insane that they just did that 1 year after, right?
Yeah, and
that's how I see Zen 3.
Yeah, and I think we'll see comparisons forever where it's like, well, no, this is really what AMD's Sandy Bridge was.
Yeah, and again,
they're never going to be perfectly directly comparable, I don't think.
No, it's like I've seen people call the 3600 the new 2500K. Boo! I think the 2700X is the new 2500K. It's 130, 8 cores. Consoles will have 8 cores. Come on. What was I gonna? Yeah, and I think what I would say is, remember, Sandy Bridge wasn't revered when it came out. They were like, this isn't that much better than Nehalem, I believe is how you pronounce it. You know, no one thought it was that great when it came out. They were like, ooh, it's 20% better. And then, like, over time, they realized it was insane. You know, and I think we won't know the Sandy Bridge of AMD until a decade from now. And one thing I would also say is this. I mean, Zen 1 might actually be the Core 2. Right? Yeah. And Zen 2 might be Nehalem. And then Zen 4 might be Sandy Bridge.
Yeah.
If you think about it. If you actually compare it, because Intel was actually in charge long before Sandy Bridge.
Oh, yeah. They had what? They had
Core 2 was
pretty
dominant.
Did they have 1 or 2 generations of the Intel I series before Sandy Bridge?
I don't know. I
don't remember exactly, but
I think 1.
Yeah.
But it was like staggered. Some of them are 45 nanometer. Some of them were, 55. So, don't butcher us for that, guys. All right, Nabusad writes in and says, what do you think of future handheld gaming? That's a good question.
It seems like it's mostly going to the Switch to me.
I mean, I don't know, guys. I think there's going to be gaming on smartphones. There is gaming. I don't game on the go.
Yeah, for a dedicated console, it seems like Switch has pretty much cornered the market. And it seems like the only real region that's that interested anymore in a dedicated game
in a meaningful way compared to like home consoles.
Yeah, the only region that seems dedicated to portable gaming is Japan. Yeah. So
and here's my problem with the Switch too. So the Switch is not, right, here's my smartphone, right? Like this fits in a pocket. The Switch does not fit in my pocket with those goddamn joysticks. Anything that I can carry a Switch in, I can carry this little laptop in a bag too. And this can run the Division. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to use this, right, with an MX250. And so I just don't, and most of the time I just browse the web on the go.
Yeah.
And
I don't have a strong desire to play games while I'm traveling.
And if I'm going to, I'll just download an emulator and play an old Pokemon game on my phone or something.
Yeah, and I guess there's the people that use public transportation a lot, but
yeah, sure. Which again, the Vita or Switch or previous stuff before that made sense back then.
Yeah,
it still does because you don't have a connection. But I think they're putting Wi-Fi in a lot of trains now too. So I don't know. I think the future of handheld gaming. I know Sony's throwing around some ideas for a new handheld, but I personally think it's just going to stay in the idea level. I don't think they're gonna. I think Sony, at least, right? So if we go down the list of handheld gaming options, I think Sony will probably, if they're smart, just focus on porting last gen games to Android and iPhone. Doing something like that would be great. Like if they brought, I don't know, what's a last gen game like Valkyrie Chronicles. I never played that. If they brought that to Android, I'll play that on my phone. Sweet. $10.
Maybe I don't really play games on my phone at all.
I don't either, but like I also don't like portable games. If they brought Patapon to the phone,
yeah,
I'll play that. I love Patapon, guys. That type of stuff would make sense for Sony. I think otherwise they're just kind of giving up on dedicated handhelds for good reason.
Yeah,
and I think Microsoft's ever going to do that. I think you'll always get Kickstarters trying to make portable PC gaming devices, failed gaming devices that come out a year late,
or don't come out,
or never come out. That's our opinion of those Kickstarter, handheld gaming devices that cost as much as my fucking laptop. I don't know. I don't have a very high opinion of them. I think eventually there may be a very good one though, and I will look for like a 9-inch phone. Laptop that can fit in my pocket, perhaps. If it had joysticks on it, that'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But I think the future of handheld gaming is just going to be like a hodgepodge of different things, and also Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Does that make like people putting stuff on Android and iPhone, and then Kickstarter stuff, and every now and then one of them will be good.
Yeah, but I'll say that I've never seen somebody using a Switch in public before in America, but.
I have.
Okay.
But notice how I had to think about it. Let me see. Write that down as a timestamp. All right. Let's see. Any other reader? Oh, we got another one here from Carbon Cry. Well, time for me to go to sleep. Also, character limits are evil. Carbon Cry insists that character limits are evil. I would say that I'm very agnostic about good or evil when it comes to character limits, but I understand their point of view. Good night, Carbon Cry. You didn't have to tip us to say good night, but good night. All right, let's see. No more tips there. We've been going for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We don't need to go that much longer. Tip us if there's any last minute questions anyone has. Let me see. I like this. Perinico says, in Europe, I travel by train for 5 to 6 hours. Handheld devices with better performance would be great. So I have to carry my laptop. I agree. Again, but for me, I think the perfect thing would be like a 9-inch laptop I can fit in my back pocket with joysticks on it. Just put joysticks on a laptop.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying I don't feel like there's that much of a market anymore for that.
I don't know.
Outside of Japan. Maybe there is.
Maybe there is. I just think no one's done a good job, and it'd take a leap of faith, and it might fail miserably.
Yeah.
Carbon Cry is not asleep yet. He insists character limits are evil. All right, let's see. Bob Flanders, just cuz. Who is who? Do you really think it is round? Do you really think the Earth is round, Dan?
I think it's a globe.
Now we're getting a bunch of them. Nabusad asks, not a tech question, which you guys can ask us non-tech questions if you want, by the way. We're here. Dan's here. Dan will not be here for another end of month live stream for,
I don't know, a while.
Maybe December.
I probably got a crazy next 6 months. So we'll see.
Yeah, you're applying to grad school. So yeah, no, he's going to be busy. So if you have questions for me and Dan, it doesn't need to be tech related. But the non-tech question is, what do you think of the meaning of life? Well, I think what you want to do is reproduce to pass on your genetic code.
Yeah. I think that's what we evolved to do, but it's whatever you find personal meaning in at this point.
Yeah. Also 42.
Also 42 if you believe in Douglas Adams' reading of the meaning of life.
The meaning of life is such a, I think it's you're here to have a good time and not hurt other people.
And
watch Cloud Atlas. It's the meaning of life.
And in my case, fuck with zebrafish.
Yeah, Dan needs to kill fish. That's his meaning. My meaning is to see how many people in the AMD subreddit I can possibly piss off with every video, apparently. Which I think I've eclipsed Adored. Actually, I don't think I have, which I find interesting. Mm-hmm. Adored really gets them mad with his well-balanced opinions. Don't be evil. Well, that's not what Google thinks anymore.
Google hates not being evil.
Yeah. Why is your favorite game Call of Duty Modern Warfare? Well, it isn't. My favorite game is probably Demon Souls, or followed by Metal Gear Solid 4, followed by The Last of Us. And then I don't know. After that, it's like a tie between Half-Life 2, Minecraft, Age of Empires 3, Borderlands 2, Battlefield just in general. I don't know. Would you? I mean, I think you put Dark Souls above Demon Souls.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
And probably above. You put that above Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. So.
A lot of games. I like a lot of games.
Oh, finally, people are. My money is tied up in full home remodeling. Yeah, I think I'm going to remodel my house early next year. See how expensive that is. I have an i7 930. Hey, Dan had one that broke.
And I gave up on it because the motherboards kept not working.
It wasn't the processor.
Yeah.
The processor we sold. And someone was very happy with it. On Windows 7, oh boy, I like to wait before upgrading. We can tell. Can I get by with Windows 10 license and air gapping when I'm not at home or on Steam? Probably. The honest answer is no one's probably going to hack you.
Yeah.
I would say Windows 10 with that. The only thing I would say is just keep this in mind. An R5 1600 is $80 at Micro Center.
You could just get it.
You could just get that in a $80 B450 motherboard, which Hardware Unboxed proved if you get a decent model, just do your research, runs the 3950X well. So you could upgrade to that eventually. That's the one thing I would say. Is it worth waiting when you can get this upgrade to a 6-core 12-thread that blows your CPU away, an $80 motherboard and RAM for in total like $200?
Yeah.
You know, is it worth waiting?
I'd probably get closer to 250.
If you're worried about sensitive data, I would just do it for that reason alone, for peace of mind. $200?
Yeah.
I would. Or, I mean, yeah. No, I think that's basically the bottom of prices. I don't think they even get cheaper on eBay. I think they're actually cheaper at Micro Center than eBay. But yeah. Nabusad says, another one, your favorite movie that changed you?
That changed me? I don't know.
You know what? I'll go. The Royal Tenenbaums, Cloud Atlas. I think those are the two movies that kind of changed me the most. Lord of the Rings. I guess
for me, other movies I'll add are Hereditary.
Hereditary. I would say Hereditary. Yeah, Hereditary was really good. We just saw The Lighthouse, by the way. It's another scary movie we can recommend. A little indie movie theater in Chicago. And when I say changed, it's like Lord of the Rings. I was like, even as a kid, almost crying. Like I didn't know movies could be this good. And the same thing of Royal Tenenbaums. Like that movie, like it just changed how I looked at movies.
Yeah,
I was a very weird kid, though. If you guys can't guess, Cloud Atlas did too. I actually saw Cloud Atlas at the College Movie Theater at Michigan Tech, and it was just a bunch of 22-year-old engineering men crying their eyes out at the end, like when Sanmi 351 or 451, I think.
I don't remember it now.
Gives that speech at the end. Dude, everyone was bawling, and I started tearing up, and I looked around, and like all of my classmates, look up where Michigan Tech is, guys. It's at the Upper Peninsula of America in the cold.
Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Well, like I just mean like Upper Peninsula, like because they might not know about the different parts of Michigan. I mean, like there's Michigan's divided into two sections. It's like the Upper Peninsula of the Upper Peninsula up there, and like these are like burly men who live in the cold, and everyone has beards, and we're just like all bawling our eyes out at this movie, and everyone didn't care. Everyone was just crying. It was really weird, actually. So that movie kind of changed me. It's a really good book too. But I guess that's my answer. I don't know. There's a lot of movies though where it's like Blade Runner was so good, the new one. I don't know. We could talk about movies. I mean, we've considered doing a movie podcast. We could talk about movies forever.
There's a lot I like. I never really see movies as movies that change me though personally. I don't know.
Yeah, Dan is cold-hearted.
Yeah.
What are your guys' opinions on Half-Life, Alex? Well, I couldn't be more excited.
I mean,
Half-Life 2 is one of my favorite games.
I mean, I could be more excited if I had anything to play it on, but
yeah, that's the one issue.
I have no clue how or if I'm ever going to play it. So it looks good, but I'm not that excited, to be honest. Because I can't play it.
You'll play it eventually, though. Aren't you at least happy it exists? That
I'm happy
for me
it exists.
Is just and it looks so good. Just hearing like that when she kills one of the guys and it does that like heart-stopping noise. I was just like, yes, again, Half-Life. We're excited for it though. We just don't know when we'll play it. What city you guys from? Well, I've said we're from Minnesota. I'll confirm that. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. I'm from Minnesota. Well, we're from Minnesota. We've lived all over the Midwest our whole lives. I live in the Midwest now. Dan lives in the Northeast.
And for me,
the New England area.
What field of study am I going for? I'm trying to do developmental biology, and I currently work as a researcher in a lab.
Oh yeah, because he asked about our day job. So you're a lab researcher, and I'm an account manager for an automotive company. So if you've watched Mad Men, I'm the guy who takes them out to dinner. I'm not the marketing guy. I'm the schmoozer.
And if you watch Mad Men, I'm not in. My job isn't.
Dan is not in Mad Men. He's decidedly not in Mad Men. Although I work for a very technical German company, so it's respectable. It's not like we're just prancing around or anything. And I'm forced to do a lot of stuff with numbers, which is why I like analyzing price and stuff so much. I mean, that's what I do for my job. Let's see. Let's go down here. Did you see that question?
I hope we didn't. Did he ask it twice?
Your opinion on half? I said that. Yeah. Socialism or capitalism?
Do we need to get into that right now?
I don't want to get into it, but I think we can just say it.
I mean, I'm a capitalist.
Yeah, capitalist works, and socialism has failed every time. So I think I'm not. It's not an opinion; it's a fact.
Yeah.
What else is there to say? It's like,
I don't think it's that simple to just say one or the other.
Yeah, it's not one or the other though. I think there's aspects of both, right? So, and I think there are parts of there are socialistic mentalities that we could pull from to make capitalist societies better. But this idea of one or the other is honestly, it's kind of idiotic. And I keep seeing this in like debates now in the US where it's like, are you a capitalist? It's like, what does that question even mean? Like, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what I think. That's what's so funny is people hate capitalism for greed, but he says people are greedy, so socialism fails. That's right. Capitalism actually is the reason, or greed is actually the reason you don't want to use socialism. That's what's so funny. You want to get like one more amber? Sure. And close out? Get a couple ambers. A couple of glasses. All right, we're going to close up. We're not going 2 hours again. YouTube takes hours to render the video if it's 2 hours long. So we got 10 more minutes. So get the questions in. All right, let's see. I can answer some of Dan's in there. Nazi references. I think we'll skip over those. I will say this, guys. Keep that talk out of here. I will ban people for that. Most anticipated game for me. It actually isn't Cyberpunk. I wasn't a big fan of the Witcher series, although I think Cyberpunk looks very good. So I do think Cyberpunk looks good. My most anticipated games, The Last of Us, easily my most anticipated game. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah.
Dan agrees. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know, right? The idea that Guerrilla might be working on a new Killzone has me excited. Horizon 2 will be good.
Horizon 2 hasn't been announced yet, though.
I mean, it's
gonna come.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Otherwise, almost maybe Half-Life Alyx. I don't get that excited for new releases though anymore.
I'm not super anticipating Alyx because of those reasons I said earlier, but yeah.
You would agree with the games I said?
What did you say? I mean, The Last of Us 2 is the game I'm most excited for, easily.
The fizz level on my beer, Dan, is off the charts.
And other than that, I'm not super excited for anything else right now, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, I'm playing Death Stranding, and I love Death Stranding.
Oh, I like this. He says Battlefield 2022 or 2021. I like that question because They announced they're not bringing out a new Battlefield for over a year, which means they're only going to add tons of content to Battlefield 5, which is what I want them to do. We don't need new Battlefields often.
I mean, I don't know what they're going to do next. Maybe.
Hopefully,
I guess they would go back to modern, but
right. And Battlefield 4 is still great if you want to play a modern Battlefield. So I think just wait till 2022, hopefully, and then you just make a photorealistic built on the idea of the new consoles being the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
Completely photorealistic Battlefield 6 that's modern. That's what I'm hoping for.
Oh, someone brought up Bannerlord. Yeah. Bannerlord looks.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited for Bannerlord, but I'll get actually excited for that when I see it exist.
We love Mountain Blade. I put hundreds of hours into it, but it needs to exist. Like I'm excited for. Here's the thing about Bannerlord. Whenever the second one comes out, we bought it. Like it's just like that, and I know it's going to be fantastic. But it's a small team in Turkey, so I don't know.
And there's something with just the idea of Mountain Blade that I like so much, even if it's a poor quality game in a lot of ways.
It's an interesting amber. It's kind of a fruity amber, I gotta say. Michael Care writes in, how long till we move on from Cat 6A to full fiber branch circuits in the home and photonic computing for your PC? Oh, and I kind of get what he's asking.
Do you mean photon using light in a CPU? Because I don't know when that would happen.
I'm going to be honest, Michael. Can you elaborate more? Because, I don't know how to answer that question, or if I can.
Yeah,
I feel bad, but I don't know if I can answer that question. I think when you're talking about Cat 6, though, you're talking about like network communications, like physical network. So if you listen to that podcast with a network engineer, which is one of the most popular episodes, actually, which I thought was really good too. He talks about how, right now Cat 6 works fine, and that really we probably will just get better and better wireless moving forward.
Yeah, that seems to be the case because wireless is almost caught up to wired at this point, right? Or it's getting close to.
It's getting effectively caught up. Obviously, it's not as good, but it's like to the point where it's like it's not almost any difference in the ease of use of wireless is much better. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know when new physical stuff will come, but I think the future is just going to be wireless because eventually to move the data quicker, you might just use wireless too.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's our best attempt at answering there. Preston Morin, have a way to highlight in chat. I haven't looked into that yet. I might eventually. I kind of like the format of this is how it works, though. If you have a question, put it in reader mail, whether that's on when I put the notification
for the live stream.
No, when I put the notification for Patreon, or if you use Discord. I really think if you want me to be prepared with a long question, put it in reader mail and it'll be put into some podcast or end of month thing, and you'll get it. I'll get to it within a month. But otherwise, this is just kind of there for who's available over an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'll spill my beer there. Looking for an expandable pocket server. I don't know if we have any suggestions for that.
I don't know.
With what's going, I assume when you say pocket server, which I'm not sure what your use case is, actually, I find that interesting. But we know that the new Zen 2 plus Vega APUs will go up to 8 cores. So I think there's your pocket server. But 15 watts, a NUC.
Yeah.
Like that's probably what you're gonna look for, and they'll let you have upgradable storage. So I'd say wait for that. That's my best answer I think I can get. And they'll probably have pro versions of those APUs. They will. Mm-hmm. So let's see what else we got. When I see some people saying ITX stuff. When he says pocket, I take that to literally mean pocket. ITX is not pocket, which is why we need to move to Nano ITX. I think
or
so.
Pico. I think that's
probably
never going to happen. Yeah.
Maybe for like embedded APUs that are like, soldered on.
Yeah.
Photonic quantum. I don't know. I still think quantum's way out. There's some evidence it may be coming sooner than expected, but again, I don't think it's going to be effectively ready for over 5 years. I don't think.
I have no clue. If you talk to quantum physicists that work on quantum computers, they think they're really good.
Yeah, and no one uses them. So
yeah,
it's an interesting argument to make when no one's using it.
A photonic computer? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've literally read nothing about that, so.
What are good hobbies to pick up to make good use of your PC hardware other than gaming? Well, there's, folding at home, mining, although mining is not
still a thing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Mining is not really that great of a thing. It's definitely just a hobby now, not really for profit. Video editing, because I like this question because I'm starting to realize like a lot of my opinions need to be understood through this lens. I've never seen a PC as just a gaming device.
And one of my best friends, his big hobby is he likes to shoot videos, like just it used to be videos of us like making shorts and stuff, but now it's just turned into him like editing videos of him doing like running or his teammates in cross country doing.
He does a good job with it. I've seen people do that.
He does wedding videos for fun.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with a PC, right? When I went into college, my desktop was there for CAD and modeling, and then I used it for mining, and then I used it for now for creating, whatever that means, encoding, sound editing. I still edit some of the podcasts myself. So I've always seen my desktop as not just a gaming thing. To be honest, I can never see a desktop as just I think non-Apple fans said that too. Everyone uses their PC for something that's not gaming. Come on. Yeah. Right? Everyone. So there's so many things you can do with them though. I don't know.
For most of my life, the big second use case I had was schoolwork, which desktop was incredibly helpful for schoolwork.
Yeah, especially when you can like pull up research and stuff at the same time. That was really useful for me as well. So I don't know. I just like if you just use your desktop for gaming, I don't know. I maybe get a console. Honestly.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have always said that because you used to be able to remember in 2010 that you could build a gaming PC with an HD 6670 and a Phenom x3 or an Athon x3 probably. For like $400 that just destroyed it in performance. Like now you're doing 1080p medium settings. That's awesome. But that's just not the world we live in anymore. Now consoles almost have better price performance than PCs, which is insane to me. So if you just game, it's like, well, and you care about price performance, the consoles are, get an R5 1600 and an RX 5700 XT, 4K
probably
60.
Do fine. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Or if you want to do 144 hertz and you're on a budget, I don't know. Get an RX 590 for 150 because it doesn't have the bandwidth for high resolutions, but it's got decent compute. And then, get like 3800X. Boom. There you go. Now you're 144 1080p. Going all out doesn't make that much sense to me unless you use your PC for non-gaming, and I always have.
Especially because going all out at this point, in my opinion, means kind of a different thing. Like I think I was talking to you about this, where it's going all out, like what they're advertising is more than what they used to advertise. Like,
yeah, it is. Going all out used to be like a $1,000 build.
Yeah, and now going all out, they're trying to sell it as you have a high-end desktop, even though this is being sold to a person that games and maybe does some other productivity work.
Yeah. All right, that's a good question though. Let's see what else there is here. Oh, we got one more here. Has Wi-Fi 6 already killed Li-Fi? Photonics is secure. I don't know. I know Li-Fi though, but I am excited for Wi-Fi 6 and the way I see it described. And when I look at its capabilities, I don't know. I think it's going to be able to enable entirely different devices. That's all I can say about Wi-Fi 6. I don't actually know what Li-Fi is though, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have to be honest when we don't know. Another tip here. The x86 ISA is bloated with old useless instructions. Yep, it's pretty old. Do you think that at some point they will remove them and software emulate them in order to have a better use of transistors? Yeah.
Or they'll move on to a different instruction set like RISC-V.
Yeah. I think moving to RISC-V, RISC-V, or I think this is just going to happen sooner than people think. That doesn't mean it's going to be next year. It's a standard. But I think in 5 years, RISC-V will be a very real thing where you go to a Best Buy and it's there.
Yeah.
I think.
It could be.
The only thing that would stop that is if AMD innovated on x86 so fast that they snuffed out any competitors.
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't think that would be enough. It would just slow it down.
Yeah, I really don't know what would.
I think it'd behoove AMD to really get on top of that sooner rather than later, too, which it sounds like they probably will. I don't know about the real worry is if Intel ignores it, because they ignore some big things. They ignored smartphones. If Intel ignores RISC-V, man, that's the real way to put them out of business is if they're like, oh, look at our 3D stacked 100% IPC increase, then everyone's moved on to RISC-V. All right, we got a few more minutes. Dan's finished his beer.
I finished my beer.
All right, last minute tips. I would say this is it. Last questions here, because I am closing this within 3 minutes before the 2-hour mark, or YouTube gets mad at us.
Does it?
Yeah, it's the difference between it rendering the video and preparing it for everyone else in like 5 minutes as opposed to hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm definitely cutting this off. And I think we get too loopy after 2 hours too. I know what you guys think, but I know, man. Yeah, I've heard about the RX 5500, all the stuff coming out. We know the benchmarks. It is a 1650 Super, which by the way, 1650 Super is based on the cut down 1660.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll talk about that in the podcast. What sound card are you considering? The sound card that comes built into the Asus X570 DTX motherboard. So X570, Asus, DTX, look up that motherboard. That's what I'm looking at. And I think that'll be good enough. I have a built-in Supreme, I think, FX one on my ITX one here. That one will be even better. That's good enough for me. I'm really targeting a 3950X and then that built-in sound card DTX motherboard. That's really what I want. And if not, you know what I'll do? I'll probably still get that DTX motherboard and then either a 2700X or if the 3800X gets cheap enough. I don't know. That seems interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that got down to 300 flat, I think I might just get the 3800X and then upgrade to a 50 core Zen 3. Who knows what it's going to be, Happy Thanksgiving from Scoops Pro. Thank you, Scoops Pro. By the way, I know you like flyover states. My plan is to get another one out within a few weeks. I've already kind of written the whole script. So it's just time. And as I go into December, I'll have more free time to work on other stuff. So I'll throw that in there for you. You snagged a 3950X, you piece of shit. He took my 3950X. I can't really complain. I took an Apple fan's Vega 5 times in a row, apparently. So Sid Lives says, gobble, gobble.
Gobble, gobble.
Have fun on your gobble, gobble day, guys. All right, we got 2 minutes left. What is this guy talking about here? Look at this. And a true colonial conquering thing. I don't know. What about Elder Scrolls 6? Yeah, Elder Scrolls 6 will probably be really good in 2025.
Or when 2027 when I buy it for $20.
I mean, guys, just think about it, right? Fallout. It takes them a long time to make a game. Fallout 76. So what does that mean? Probably another 3 years till.
And I was alluding to the fact that I never buy Bethesda games, except the one time when I bought Fallout 4 on release date. And I know you disagree with me, but
it's an opinion. I love Fallout 4.
I regret buying Fallout 4 day one.
Yeah, most people seem to. But I love it.
So
again, I think when people talk about our games, good or bad, it's like it is opinion. I like Fallout 4 a lot. I just do. Sorry, guys. It just works for me. And I can't help but like it.
Yeah, and every other time I bought a Bethesda game, I've waited until it was $15 to $20, and I've always been happy at that price point.
He says, yeah, well, we've been waiting for Half-Life 3 since 2006. Yeah, I know. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's what the Outer Worlds is pretty good, though. There's a lot of good open world games. That's the thing. Do we need Elder Scrolls 6? That's the problem. There's so many open world games now.
And my new CPU came with the Outer Worlds, so that's exciting.
I had Dan's 2700X. God, what a deal.
So if you can get a 2700X at Micro Center, you also get the Outer Worlds.
Anywhere.
If you're interested in that.
Even on
anywhere.
Yeah, it's cheaper at Micro Center.
Okay.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it. We are closing. I said plug bag. That's a comedy.
That's a comedy Bang Bang reference. I don't have anything to plug except for. No, I have nothing to plug.
Yeah, Moore's Law is dead.
Yeah.
Moore's Law is dead. Dan gets some payment for it, so you are funding Dan if you support Moore's Law is dead, including Gerard. I'll say that too. Our sound editor. I just sent him one of my Vegas for free because he's upgrading his PC. I'm a purveyor of Vega cards. This is what I just give to people now as tribute because I have a pile of Vega cards. But all right. Hope you guys enjoyed the chat. Two brothers for Thanksgiving. Thank you for supporting us, and more content rolling out soon. Any last words, Dan?
I hope you guys all have a good Thanksgiving with your families.
Or by yourself.
Or by yourself if that's what you want.
Even more wishes to the people by themselves.
Yes.
All right. Buy a hooker or something. I mean, don't be by yourself. All right. Bye, everybody.